You mentioned earlier that it could be up to 12 months that somebody might be, on average, receiving support from the programme. So one of the things I'd assume is that when they transition out, that they would still be able to receive support from all of the services that are out there already for them.
Absolutely. Part of the program requires the Specialist Dementia Care Program provider to assist in that transition out process, which means providing support to either making sure that if the person transitions to another place within the same facility, that the information and the knowledge about the person and their care needs is transferred. But I guess more importantly, if the person opts to move to another facility, they also have an obligation to provide that information to assist with the transition out process. That said, DSA and SBRT are available as supports as well, as are a number of other organisations, you said state-based and private.
Now, we've got some great questions coming in, but I'm going to preempt one of them, which is security of tenure, Anne.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, thank you, Colm. So, as I said earlier, a key requirement or a key element of the program is that the care is transitionary and that people, once their behaviour is stabilised, they are able to transition into a lower care environment. So to enable that within the residential aged care framework, we've actually amended the user rights principles to ensure that once a person no longer needs the clinical care or the care provided under the program, they will need to move into a lower care environment. So essentially their security of tenure lasts while they need that level of care, but once it is determined that they no longer need that level of care, they are then expected to transition into another place, a lower care environment. It is important to note that the conversation around the transition out needs to be had at the outset before entering the program. So while it's not going to be possible to determine how long a person will be in the program, and obviously some may change their mind as to where they want to go on discharge from the program, there does need to be some thinking around where the person will transition out to, and there needs to be consent for the fact that this is actually a transitionary model of care. So that needs to be acknowledged up front. And Steve mentioned the consent form. That's actually that we already have an information form on this. A person's family or decision maker will need to sign to acknowledge that they're aware of the transitionary nature of the program. Because if we don't have that, then people will stay in the beds, and it means that other people who really need the program won't have the opportunity to enter into the program. So it's to ensure that there's flow through the program.
So it's really important to emphasise the specialist short-term nature of this program. You've also touched on the fact that obviously there will be supports when people return to other services, but you mentioned also that typically we'll have 8 beds with an additional bed so that perhaps if something doesn't work out in that initial time out there, I'm assuming this gives some trust and security that the support will be there.
Absolutely. So the units will have that 9th bed, and if a person transitions out and they need to come back into the unit, there will be a place for them. Within the program, we term a successful transition out as remaining out within 3 months or for a period of 3 months or longer. But clearly, if someone needs to move back in, then there is that bed available for them.
And Steve, anything else to say on consent that we have? You have emphasised the importance of this. Obviously, a lot of documentation that's important to be securely managed and respected.
Sure. I mean, we're very careful about how we handle sensitive documents, obviously, but just to underline the point that Anne's made about consent, one of the learnings that we've had from the early stages of this program is that there's no shortage of referrals from providers and people who might like access to an SDCP facility. But many of the referrals that we've received so far, when the next of kin and family are actually approached about the referral, they decide they don't want to be part of the program for whatever reason. And that might be geographic, it might be because they don't want the residents' care disturbed, it might be that they're quite happy with the current provider and accommodation and don't see the need to move themselves. So really there's very little point making a referral to triage unless that initial step of obtaining informed consent from the next of kin or decision maker has been taken, because we wouldn't spend a day assessing somebody's eligibility where it's a bit of a moot point because no consent has been obtained. So really very important first step to consider.